If I could have everyone's attention. We're going to begin the memorial service in a few moments, or now. Before we do, I just want to invite everyone to take a moment, turn off cell phones, put them on silent, please. And let's take a moment of focused quiet to prepare ourselves emotionally, spiritually, to remember Hersh, to remember the hostages, and to support the Polin Goldberg family. Let's just take a moment of quiet. It says in the Talmud that Sarat Rabbi Mechetzi Nechama, that the sorrow of many is a half comfort. And just looking around this unbelievable crowd, my hope is that our presence is a half comfort for the family, and that together we may feel a half comfort at this horrific loss that we've endured. I want to welcome Abby to come forward and begin today's program.
I have some written words here, but I have to say I'm extremely overwhelmed by what I'm actually looking out to right now. So I'm going to try to read my notes, but I may ad-lib a little bit just based on what I'm seeing. On behalf of Hersh's US-based family, I want to thank everyone for showing up as a community, not just today, but for the 11 months that you all showed up in the advocacy and awareness to what we all hoped was to bring Hersh and all the hostages home. Our family, and that includes the greater Jewish and non-Jewish community in Chicago, Israel, around the world, followed Rachel's motto that hope is mandatory. This certainly was not the ending we hoped, fought, and prayed for, but for now, we are together mourning in utmost shock and pain for Hersh, as well as for Carmel, Aiden, Alex, Almog, and Ori, who were so brutally taken from us after nearly 330 days of staying strong and surviving in captivity. Two of the most common comments I have heard are, "There are no words," to which I have responded that I have no words back in response to these kind of sheer acts of inhumane brutality. The other comment is, "What can we do?" And to that I answer, there are still 101 hostages still being held in captivity, and we must keep up our advocacy and awareness now more than ever to see them returned to their loved ones. We will now hear some brief remarks from the Consul General from Israel to the Midwest, Yinam Cohn, Hersh's first cousins, Madison and Emily Reisler, a video sent by the former CEO of Ramat Darom, Fred Levick, Hersh, Libby, and Orly's grandma, Marcy Goldberg, relatives, friends, Jeremiah Smith and Jake Schneider, Hersh's Safta, Grandma Leah Polin, and a video from John and Rachel. We will conclude with the singing of the national anthem and the Hatikva, led by Rabbi Ari Hart.
Dear Leah, Abby, family members, Senator Durbin, Congressman Skokie, State Representative, State Senator, Alderman, dear community members. Hersh was Rachel and John's son, but over the past year, he became our collective son. Though I had never met him or known him before October 7th, I feel as though I've known him my entire life, or rather, his entire, all too brief life. It's not just because Hersh and I shared so much in common. We grew up in the same area of Jerusalem, attended the same high school, and shared a deep love for Hapoel Yerushalayim, though I know his passion and dedication to the team far surpassed mine. But it was mainly due to the inspiring journey Rachel and John courageously endured during the devastating 11 months since Hersh's abduction by Hamas terrorists, his horrific captivity, and ultimately his brutal murder in the Hamas terror dungeons 60 feet underground in the Gaza Strip, together with 5 other Israeli hostages, Eden Yerushalmi, Ori Danino, Carmel Gat, Alex Lobanov, and Almog Sarusi. During this painful journey, we have come to feel as if we knew Hersh personally, his dreams, his passions, his family. We became acquainted with the values he was raised with and the remarkable environment that shaped him. For many, he became the face of the tragedy of October 7th. As you all know, John and Rachel recently visited Chicago. Even though I understand they weren't sure about that, they came here to continue their international advocacy journey for Hersh and all the hostages. I was there at the United Center when they took stage at the DNC. As Consul General of Israel, I have to admit, I was a bit concerned. I had concerns about how our message would be received during the DNC, knowing that there were some people, both inside the convention and mainly on the streets of Chicago, trying to inject anti-Israeli messages and even to normalize the horrors of October 7th. When Rachel and John began speaking so emotionally, the response was just incredibly emotional. It was as if everyone in that massive hall was completely immersed in their pain, their strong moral compass, and their moving message. Personally, I found it almost impossible to hold back my tears as I listened to them. It was undoubtedly the most powerful message delivered on the stage during the DNC. Dear Leah, Abby, family members, community members, we are so deeply grateful for everything that you've done over the past 11 months. Your tireless efforts to raise awareness, garner support, and amplify the call for the release of Hersh and all the hostages have been remarkable. I am profoundly appreciative of your courage, dedication, and commitment. We will forever carry the pain of Hersh's absence and the sorrow of not being able to celebrate the future he should have had. Yet, we remain committed to honoring his legacy and the values he stood for throughout his brief 23 years. His spirit and dedication to justice and humanity will continue to inspire us, driving us to uphold the principles he cherished and to seek justice in his name. The past weeks and the horrifying murder of the 6 hostages have taught us a crucial lesson. Time is running out for the hostages. We need to bring them home now. There are still 101 sons, daughters, siblings, friends, parents, grandparents, spouses, loved ones held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. We need to continue to raise awareness, calling for maximum pressure to be exerted on Hamas to secure a deal that would release the hostages now. I know that the price of such a deal would be unbearable, but the price of no deal could be even higher. Thank you.
My name is Emily,
My name is Madison.
and we are the first cousins of Hersh Goldberg-Polin. First cousins can mean vastly different things in every family. But for us Polins, a first cousin embodies somewhat of a sibling-like bond. Throughout our lives, and even after the GoPos, what we frequently call the Goldberg-Polins, made Aliyah in 2008, we were always especially close with our Uncle John, Aunt Rachel, and our first cousins, Hersh, Libby, and Orly. We used to spend summers together in Skokie, Passovers together every spring, and Madison and I both essentially lived out of the GoPo's Jerusalem apartment while on our gap years in Israel. The last time we saw Hersh was May 2023, just a few months before this whole nightmare began. We were in Israel as a family for a cousin's bat mitzvah and for our mom and stepdad's wedding, a week marked by life, dancing, hearty laughs, and simcha. We look back on these photos now and see our family in a parallel universe from the universe we find ourselves in today. They capture our family, Hersh included, from the before, a sharp contrast from the weathered, incomplete Polins of the now. Just like every year prior, October 3rd, 2023, Hersh's 23rd birthday involved many goofy exchanges in our Polin family WhatsApp. Amidst the barrage of happy birthdays to Hersh, the birthday boy told us in his classic joking fashion that he'd be spending the day partying hard and dancing the night away in Jerusalem with a little salute emoji. All was cheery and normal in the world. But then came October 7th, just 4 days later. I flipped over my phone that morning to an abundance of WhatsApp messages and news notifications of the horrors unfolding in Israel. Then I get a call from Madison. Forcing calm into her voice, she asked, "Have you talked to anyone in the family yet today?" Before I could even respond, she tells me, Hersh was at some music festival in the Negev, terrorists attacked, and now no one can find him. This short, fateful FaceTime, lo and behold, launched us into the 329-plus day journey of what Rachel and John frequently refer to as hell. The GoPos, with the army of Team Hersh behind them, ran at 200 miles per hour for nearly 11 months, fighting to achieve the only reality we could fathom at the time. Hersh was coming home.
But late afternoon on August 31st, we learned it was not to be. We got the fateful text from John reading, confirmed, Hersh has passed away, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Our fiery flame, which fueled the 200-mile-per-hour race to bring Hersh home, slowed to a halt. And within 12 hours, our US-based family was on flights to Israel to reunite with the long-sought-after, now lifeless body of our beloved Hersh. It is not in our nature, nor in the Polin family DNA, to ever sit down. With Shiva and the few weeks that have followed, we've been forced to finally sit and now have had time to reflect on this entire experience. As family members, we know intimately who Hersh was and what made him so special. Over time, people of all kinds from across the globe saw, felt, and were compelled by our Hersh. We saw this with our own eyes in the family convoy from John Rachel Hersh Libby and Orly's Jerusalem home to Har HaMenuchot Cemetery. Hundreds of thousands of people ushering us along the route to his final resting place. People of all ages wearing Bring Hersh Home shirts, waving flags, and holding signs that read, Slicha, sorry. Face after face after face streaming with tears. There was not a single gap of mourners as we floated along the sea of sorrow. At Hersh's Shiva, people flocked from all over Israel and even flew in to wait in hours-long lines to pay their respects to John and Rachel. Under the Shiva tent, just down the street from their family home, I sat beside John and Rachel and listened to what some of the thousands of people had to share. Remorse, repentance, despair, anguish, grievance, profound devastation with or without ever having met Hersh. Throngs of people would approach us and say repeatedly, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim, may you be comforted among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. As a family, we know that we must remain steadfast in our morality and in our justice. The resources deployed by this collective Bring Hersh Home movement and by leaders enlisted from around the world were not in vain. Each of us felt connected to Hersh and contributed to this expansive effort that ensued around him in our own unique ways, through art, music, writing, politics, sports, cooking, community service, advocacy, social justice, in all categories. This collective effort expanded beyond what we could have ever imagined. The creativity that transpired to bring Hersh home must continue onwards to honor Hersh's legacy forever. Humanity must prevail in solving today's pervasive disasters. If we allow humanity to fail, then we have failed all of the hostages that did not get a second chance at life. This starts with bringing home the 101 hostages still in captivity, so no other family has to face this enormity of grief. It continues with the obligation we all carry to uphold Hersh, Carmel, Alex, Eden, Ori, and Almog's legacy forever. Amidst the unfathomable brutality they endured, their extraordinary resilience to stay strong and survive for so long need be the reflective mirror for how we must continue to survive and prevail in the outer world. To use Rachel's words, I will never give up. Hope is not a suggestion, nor is it advice. It is a command. It is indeed mandatory.
My name is Fred Levick, and I'm deeply touched to have been asked by Leah and Abby to speak to you today on behalf of their friends from Ramat Darom. We thank Hashem for the precious gift of knowing and loving your family, and for the privilege of witnessing Hersh grow from a young boy into an extraordinary young man. In this time of profound grief, we share your pain, and we pledge to uplift you with love, to keep Hersh's spirit alive, and to work tirelessly to bring the remaining 101 hostages home. My friend and teacher, Rabbi Shai Held, a cherished member of our Ramat Darom community, has written a remarkable book titled Judaism is About Love. In it, he writes, God creates us with love in the hopes that we too will become lovers. But for that to happen, we need families to serve as schools of love, where kindness, compassion, gratitude, and generosity can be learned and internalized. Over the past 11 and a half months, Rachel and John and their family have truly created a school of love. They have shown us the essence of pure love, teaching us grace, dignity, compassion, and the depth of authentic spirituality and faith. These are the lessons we have felt deeply, ones that have penetrated our hearts and souls. What a remarkable gift they have bestowed upon us. They have made Hersh the world's son, celebrated in all his unique brilliance, while emphasizing a fundamental tenet of our faith, that each of us is created in the image of God, possessing infinite value, equality, and uniqueness, as Rabbi Yitz Greenberg eloquently states. This profound understanding does not arise without the most extraordinary and pure love. While Rachel emerged as the voice of humanity and the conscience of the world, John stood steadfastly beside her with his unwavering focus, vision, and determination to overcome every obstacle in their path to bring Hersh and the other hostages home. We owe both of them an immeasurable debt of gratitude. Having known their family for 14 years, it comes as no surprise to me that they possess such extraordinary love. I first met Stan and Leah Polin, their children and grandchildren, as well as Rachel's mom, Marcy, along with Jeremiah and Shayla back in 2010 when I served as CEO of Ramat Darom. As Abby recounts, they fell in love with our Passover program and our community, and I, along with many others, fell in love with them. The Polin and Goldberg families embody a warmth and kindness that radiates charm and personality, with Hersh being a shining example. It was clear to everyone how deeply they cherished one another and the joy they found in being together. Their love extended beyond their family. They embraced the broader community of nearly 400 people, welcoming others into their circle, even inviting them to their seders. They understood the importance of joy and camaraderie, and the bonds that formed within our Passover community became profound and lasting. Hersh was a true reflection of that loving family. Over the 9 years during Passover, I watched him grow. Though I could only see him once a year for 9 days, I witnessed the blossoming of a remarkable young man. I saw him again in 2019 in Israel during Sukkot as he was joining the army, and for the last time at Abby and Simon's wedding a year ago in May. In these brief encounters, I was blessed to witness Hersh transform into the person we've come to know through his extraordinary parents. Intellectually curious, playful, adventurous, respectful, independent, peace-loving, slightly irreverent, and a passionate sports fan. He had a gift for connecting with people of all ages, moving effortlessly between serious conversations with adults and playful banter with younger kids. He exuded self-assurance and warmth, making everyone feel at ease in his presence. Hersh, I'm deeply sorry we could not do more to save you. I promise to dedicate my life to honoring your spirit and working toward your vision of a better and more just world. I will ensure you are never forgotten. To Leah, Abby, and Simon, Madison, and Emily, Bonnie and Rich, Nathan, Yael, and Eitan, Marcy, and to Rachel, John, Libby, and Orly, we offer our unwavering love and support, along with the enduring blessing of Hersh's memory. Hersh ben Pearl Chana, may your memory inspire a revolution of thought and action, compelling us to think and act differently and to strive to do better in this world.
My name is Marcy Goldberg, and I had the privilege and joy of being Hersh's bubby. I wanted to, first of all, thank all the wonderful people in the world who have shared and bonded their hearts and souls with our family during this tragedy. I wanted to share a story with you about Hersh, which exemplified the spark of goodness in his soul. When Rachel and John and the 3 grandchildren made Aliyah and were living in Jerusalem, Hersh was coming home from school one day when he was 9 with a friend of his who had recently come to Israel from Ethiopia, one of the very few people that were able to get out and came to live in Israel. And as they were walking through the old city, they passed a very, very religious yeshiva. And some boys, probably around the age of Hersh and his friend, were playing outside the building. And there was a fence. And all of a sudden, these boys started shouting very mean and insulting things to Hersh's friend. And Hersh went over to the wall and started to reprimand these boys, saying, "What are they teaching you there? How can you be cruel to people?" And this is a fellow Jew who for years, they thought they were the only Jews left in the world, but they were keeping kosher and they were following, the Torah and whatever, and these boys would not stop. Coming over a bridge was Hersh's sister, Libby, and a friend of hers. And they noticed something was going on, and they came over the bridge and down to find out. And when they understood what was happening, Libby, who was 7 with her girlfriend, went over to the fence and said, "If you don't stop saying mean things to our friends, we're going to show you our elbows." And they put up their thing and they started going like this. And the boys started covering their eyes and screaming and ran into the building. And then the rabbi came out, and Hersh said to him, "What are you teaching? Let me tell you what they just did." And the rabbi was embarrassed. He said, I'll talk to them. They went home, and when they got to Rachel and John and started explaining what had happened, he said to Rachel, after he explained it, he said, "I wish Jeremiah were there." Now, for those of you who don't know, Jeremiah is like a son, a grandson to me. He and his brother and 2 sisters came to live with me when Jeremiah was 12 through high school. But Jeremiah and I go back to when he was 6 years old, when I met him tutoring him at an inner city school. And he was like a big brother to Hersh, because when Hersh was 9, Jeremiah was 14. That's a big difference. And so Jeremiah to him seemed, bigger than life. And Hersh's friend said, "Who's Jeremiah?" And Hersh thought for a moment, because he knew Jeremiah was a relative because he lived with his bubby. He just wasn't quite sure how the relation, was. And so he said, "Oh, he's my brother, cousin, uncle." And this was Hersh. He loved Jeremiah like a brother. He looked up to him. We went on vacations together. And, as you just heard at Camp Ramah, we used to go for Pesach every year. I just want to say that as sad as the mourning is, I wouldn't give up 1 second of Hersh's 23 years that we were blessed with. And I want to thank all of you for your love and support, because it has meant a great deal. Thank you.
Hello, you guys. My name is Jeremiah Smith. I'm sorry. Hello, you guys. My name is Jeremiah Smith. And I'm the one that's been driving around the truck with me and my best friend, LaDante. I didn't write anything down, so it's coming from the heart. So I've been knowing Hersh since he was 2 years old, and he's been the best little brother I can ever ask for. And I'm gonna tell you guys a story about Hersh and me when we was at Camp Ramah. Now, Hersh is a big sports fan, and I am too. So, you know, as a big brother, I tried to teach him how to play basketball. And he loved his sports, but he couldn't play basketball for nothing. And you know, he was maybe 6 or 7. We were at Camp Ramah, and I tried to teach him how to do a layup. And he kept trying and trying. So right before we were going in, I'm like, we're gonna do it 10 more times. So he tried it, he missed. He missed the first 9 times. I was like, this is the last time. So he made that one. And he was like, I think I'm getting the hang of it. You know, he's like, I think we should do it again. I'm like, nah, it's about 11 o'clock. And Hersh been as much of a big brother to me as I was to him. Because when I went to Israel, he was the big brother. He had to talk to everybody. He showed me how to get money off on the Star David chain when we went there. So it was pretty fun. When I heard about his passing, and that it was the same night of my wedding day, and I couldn't go to sleep the whole night, and I thought about just stop driving the truck. But as me sitting up the whole night, he said, it's still, I just heard a voice, and he just said, it's still 101 hostages. And he was like, Jeremiah, I hear you. He was just speaking to me the whole night. Just keep driving the truck and get the 101 hostages home. And I was like, whatever you say, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get up on Monday morning and do it. And when I got back in the truck on Monday, I had a t-shirt of him, and I set it like right next to me, so I'm like, he's gonna drive with me everywhere I go. And he was there, you know? And I wanna thank everybody for coming. And I wanna thank Marcy Goldberg, who is my hero. And I love you. And I love you too, Hersh. Thank you.
Hello all. My name is Jake Schneider. I'm a distant cousin of Rachel Goldberg on my mother's side. First, I want to thank Abby Polin and everyone else involved in planning this beautiful and important event. With everything that has happened this past year and then the recent tragic events, our community is suffering, and it's so important to have opportunities to come together and support one another. Thank you to the law enforcement and security for protecting us here today and every day in our communities. On behalf of my family, I want to thank everyone for honoring and preserving Hersh's name and memory with your presence. I want to extend my deepest condolences to the Goldberg-Polin family, who have suffered an unfathomable tragedy at the hands of evil with the murder of Hersh Goldberg-Polin, son of John and Rachel, brother of Orly and Libby. May our memory of Hersh be a blessing to us all. As a result of John and Rachel's relentless efforts over the last 351 days, sharing Hersh's story to the world, all of us here and many across the globe feel a strong connection to Hersh, someone they had not known before October 7th, 2023. We know Hersh was a kind person, a shining light in our world. He loved and cared for others like few can. He lived every day to make the world a better place. He lived Tikkun Olam. Hersh's murder shocked and angered me. It's immeasurably tragic, and yet, how amazing is it that the world knows Hersh's name? That's the power of Hashem. That's the magnitude of my hope. At Hersh's funeral, John and Rachel spoke of failure, that they let Hersh down, that they somehow didn't do enough to bring him home. I have to assume their sadness clouded their minds that day because they are mistaken. They did the exact opposite of failure. They immortalized Hersh's name. They changed the world. As we continue to mourn and grieve for Hersh, for the thousands of innocent lives lost on and since October 7th, and pray for the safe return of the remaining hostages, we must remember Hersh every day. Let him be a symbol for hope. We must make a commitment to ourselves and our neighbors that we will always stick together and that we'll work towards a better future. God gave Rachel and John the strength to get us to this point. In Hersh's name, we must take the baton and continue their work. It's on us now, and like John and Rachel, we will succeed. Thank you.
First, on behalf of all the family, I want to welcome some dignitaries we have with us today, some local politicians who we've been in touch with over the last almost 1 year. Our Senator Dick Durbin, is here today. Our representative for many of us, Jan Schakowsky, is here today. The lone Jewish alderman in the city of Chicago who always speaks up, Deborah Silverstein, is here today. And many Cook County commissioners and representatives of the village of Skokie. So thank you all for coming and honoring Hersh's memory. My incredible daughter-in-law, Rachel, has said, Hersh may not have been perfect, but he was the perfect son for me. And I can say with certainty, Hersh was the perfect grandson for me. Our times together were always pleasant, productive, and rewarding. When Stan and I drove many times to Richmond, Hersh was eager to share his newest learnings, particularly overwhelming us with his pronunciations of the countries and the capitals in Eastern Europe that neither Stan or I could even name. He was always respectful, helpful, and full of chen. Once the family made Aliyah, he was enrolled in the Rova in the Old City, similar to a magnet school here in Chicago. Small classes, individualized learning, perfect for Hersh. As you have heard, our family began to spend Pesachs at Camp Ramad Jerome when Hersh was 9 or 10, I don't remember exactly, and we continued to go for 9 years.
Your microphone is muted.
Priceless times
Your video
together.
stopped.
Cabin 29,
The Polin cabin on a beautiful mountaintop
the meeting.
was where we played card games, Time's Out, Scrabble, well into the night. And we all
That's what
reviewed
you
our
wanted to
days
hear.
learning from wonderful rabbis
sick person,
and our
excuse me.
activities,
Huh.
and we talked about what the next day would bring.
Huh.
Hersh was always eager to share his erudition until his teen years, when he was always the ringleader of the teens at Ramad that season. And he often didn't return to the cabin until well into the night. The last seasons there, Stan required a wheelchair, and Hersh always volunteered to push it up and down the hill until he thought he was ready to drive the camp van, but that's another story. Our grandkids would virtually count the days from Ramad Darom departure to the next season to all be together again in cabin 29. It's now known as the Polin cabin. Hersh particularly loved three things: having fun, making money, and music. Let me turn this. When I came to Jerusalem the first time alone after Stan died, Hersh insisted I go with him to a game of the Hapoel Yerushalayim. He had bought himself a season's pass with his own money, and he dared not miss one game. He said I would have a great time. Safta, you'll love it. And I would meet all his new friends. I was reluctant, figuring it might be chaotic or too noisy, and indeed my fears were justified. The banging of the big drums and the clanging of the castanets and the shouting and the screaming was intolerable to me. The game was secondary, and the young people came, I decided, for the hype and the noise, both not my things. Now fast forward a few years, and Hersh decided, with his love of travel, to take a trip to Germany, specifically the 6 cities in the soccer league. And he was going to stay in the houses of his new friends, the bangers and the clangers of the opposition teams. When I challenged the appropriateness of his decision as a religious Jerusalem person, staying in countless German homes, his profound shock at my question was followed by, Safta, how will there ever be peace between Jews and Germany with an attitude like yours? My friends and I are the new generation. And by the way, these new friends promoted and advocated for Hersh's and the other hostages' release throughout Europe. They sent wreaths to the funeral, and many came in person to the funeral of Hersh in Jerusalem. Indeed, they truly loved him. Now, Hersh also came up with the most creative and short-term ways of making money. A few Sukkos ago, I was in Jerusalem, and Hersh and his friend, Charlie Torin, also with Chicago roots, were going in the business of selling new aravot, the willows that go into the making of the lulav. For the last days of Sukkot, they decided everybody had to have new aravot for the last days of Sukkot. They were going to use the refrigerator in my apartment to store the willows for the lulav, and then tie them up, and then head out on the town in Jerusalem to sell them. The first year, they came back to the apartment very late and very exhausted, and they said, there must be a better way to unload the fresh aravot in a quicker and more remunerative manner. The following Sukkot, with a fresh new supply of aravot, I don't know where they came from, they headed to the brand new at the time Waldorf Astoria Hotel, which was the elegant Sukkot home for many American Hasidim. They dressed appropriately, appealing to the Hasidim. They had prepared a basic selling pitch, and they returned a very short while after they left, big smiles on their faces, no leftovers, counting their profits. A practical lesson in entrepreneurship. Hersh's love for music brought him to the Nova Festival, but no one in the universe expected the brutal ending. We just knew, as was said before, that Hersh would be the one to survive to tell the story. What Rachel and John then did is beyond the scope of anyone's imagination. And John and Rachel and their family, our family, and all their friends will continue to work until the rest of the hostages are free. Of course, Rachel told us that hope is mandatory. Now, one last story, and this one is about me. On the morning before the day of my son Brian's daughter's wedding, Brian and I went for a long walk. We passed a wall with pictures of all the hostages, but Hersh's was missing. I said to Brian, I want that picture. As we continued to walk down the long Jerusalem hill, he said, Ma, you wait at the intersection. I will go get the car since you will never make it back up the hill. Now, at the corner was a typical Jerusalem shop with mops and brooms and housewares in front. I went to open the door, and there on the door of the shop was the picture of Hersh that was missing from the wall that I had just passed. Tears welled up in my eyes. The shopkeeper came over to me and said, can I help you? And I said, Ani ha-Safta shel Hersh, Ani ha-Safta shel Hersh. I am Hersh's grandma. And with that, she hugged me, burst into tears, and called her husband. He appeared and looked stunned and said to me, Hersh is now holy. We couldn't just throw the poster away. We imagined and hoped that someone would come into the shop and say they were related to Hersh, and we would then give them the poster. With that, they very carefully removed it from the door, told me to pick any frame I wanted in the store, which I didn't want any, and they turned to each other and said, Min hashamayim, from the heavens. Later that week, someone shared with me an article by Gil Hoffman, a family friend, another Ida Crown graduate, in the New York Post saying, like Anne Frank, Hersh Goldberg-Polin's story will stand forever as a representation of lives cut short by Hamas on October 7th. Thank you.
We want to thank everyone who is gathered today at Skokie Valley, all of our family and friends and community who have come together to talk about Hersh. We are extremely grateful that all of you have been with us from the very, very beginning of this arduous journey, and specifically the last few weeks since Hersh's death. So thank you for coming together, and thank you for all the support that you have been sending our way.
In addition to thanking you all, one of the other points that we wanted to convey here is the notion that I mentioned in my eulogy for Hersh of Yehi Zichro Ma'apecha, may his memory be a revolution. We've had a lot of people re-quoting that and giving their own interpretations of what that revolution is. And while we're not going to fully define it right now, I would say that while Hersh might call for a political revolution, what we intended in saying that is really more of a human, moral, ethical revolution in terms of how we all interact with each other. Rachel has spoken for a year about Hersh as a respectful person, always giving numerous examples, one of them being that even when he wasn't so into going to shul, to synagogue, he would continue to do so just so that I would not sit alone. And there are so many other examples. But really the broader concept of Hersh and respect is that he lived respectfully, respectful of all around him, people above him, his peers, people below him when he was in positions of responsibility. And it's a theme that we witnessed and that we've heard about from so many people. And that actually is unfortunately really lacking in the world today. Another piece of the revolution that we'd love to see in Hersh's memory and his honor is really attempting to understand each other. Hersh, from the time he was young, innately was curious to understand people, and it was a trait that he always took very seriously, just innately, without talking about it. He would ask probing questions of people with whom he disagreed because he wanted to really learn and understand. And he would do that across the political spectrum and in all kinds of conversations. And again, it's something we hear about from so many people since he has passed away. So another component of how we all interact with each other, humility. Hersh always acted with humility. He was always small egoed. And personal responsibility is something else. Hersh would just get stuff done when he was out with his friends, when he was a counselor in the house. If he saw that something needed to get done, he would just get it done. He would go and do it and not make a big deal of it, not argue, not seek attention. Stuff would just get done, and he would take responsibility for his actions. So again, not a full definition of what we mean by Yehi Zichro Mapecha, but it isn't about take to the streets with pitchforks and blood in the streets and overturn things. That is not the revolution that he would want right now. It's not the revolution that we want in his memory.
It's a much quieter kind of idea. And it's actually a much more personal thing that each of us can do, that each of us can try to make room for someone who we're in some sort of dynamic with or in a relationship with. So I think that's something we'll develop more as time goes on and share with you. The last thing that we want to remind everyone of, which of course is that there are still 101 hostages being held in Gaza right this very second. And it is critical that you keep doing all the advocacy that you were doing and that you have been doing, and I'm assuming that you are still doing, but that you don't lose hope, that we need to remember that there are these people there and we have a responsibility more so than ever to, we know that time is of the essence and every single second there is so dangerous and so scary. So please keep doing what you're doing. And again, thank you for being with us through this really challenging time. And we know that we are going to survive, and we know we are going to thrive. We know it is what Hersh wants. We know it's what we want. And so we know that it will happen. And we're just very grateful that you're all with us.
Thank you.
A final word before we conclude to the family. You've been through hell, just every family's nightmare. And in that hell, somehow, you've brought light. Look what you've done today. Look what you've brought us together today. We needed this. Look how you've shared the message of the hostage to reach billions of people across the world. Look how you've talked about Jewish unity and brought together our nation at a very divided time. Look how you've spoken to our best values of love and freedom. Look what you've done in the most impossible circumstances. And to that, on behalf of everybody, to the Goldberg-Polin family, I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We'll conclude today with the two national anthems, Hersh's countries, the United States of America and Israel. And let's offer them today as a statement of identity and connection and commitment, and also perhaps as a prayer for the United States to remain a beacon of freedom, to do everything the US government can to bring the remaining hostages home, and as a prayer of hatikva, of hope, of even in these dark times, remembering our command that Rachel and John commanded us, to not give up on hope, to keep hoping. So in that spirit, I invite you to join me together. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous night o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Goldberg-Polin vav penima nefesh Yehudi omiyah ufate mizrach kanima ayin letzion Sophia. Olu abdat ikvateinu atiting rabat shnot alpayim liotam chofshi be'artzeinu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim Liotam chofshi be'artzeinu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Please get home safely. This concludes today's program.
אחינו כל בית ישראל, אחינו כל בית ישראל, הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. אחינו כל בית ישראל, אחינו כל בית ישראל, הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם עליהם ויוציאם מצרה לרווחה ומאפלה לאורה ומשעבוד לגאולה השתה בגלה ובזמן קריב.